Global Health and Culture students. Thank you for joining me for our presentation entitled Making a Difference in Global Health. Today, I'd love to discuss with you, first of all, what is global health? What does it mean? What does that term mean? How is it differentiated from international health? Then I'd like to share with you a little bit about how I developed my passion for global health. Then I'll move into some global health opportunities in and around Jacksonville. And then finally, I'll share some insights on how you can get involved in global health in your area. So first of all, what is global health? What does that term mean? There's a lot of confusion with the difference between global health and international health. So I'll just share with you this brief definition of global health as being the health of populations in a global context. It's been defined as the area of study, research, and practice that places a priority on improving health and achieving equity in health for all people worldwide. Problems that transcend national borders or have a global, political, and economic impact are often emphasized. Thus, global health is about worldwide health improvement, reduction of disparities, and protection against global threats that disregard national borders. Global health is not to be confused with international health, which is defined as the branch of public health focusing on developing nations and foreign aid efforts by industrialized countries. So that's just to clarify global health up front. I also wanted to share that global health issues are also our own local issues. Their problems are our problems, and our problems are their problems. We're all together interconnected all around the world. So for example, some of their issues might be the coronavirus, Zika, Ebola, dengue fever, and the huge refugee, displaced person, asylum seeker, immigrant, all those issues. Another example might be tuberculosis, overpopulation, and epidemics or pandemics. And our issues might be epidemics or pandemics, deforestation, water stress, which is going to be a huge issue in the coming years. It already is, but it's going to get worse and worse. Climate change, food insecurity, and on and on. They're all issues that are global. They're found all around the world. They're also found here and vice versa. And whatever happens globally around the world, oftentimes will impact us locally and vice versa. I wanted to share with you the 13 biggest health challenges for the next decade. Our climate crisis is number one. Health care delivery in areas of conflict and crisis, like in Syria, which is such a challenge these days. Healthcare equity, access to treatments all around the world, infectious disease prevention, epidemic and pandemic preparedness, unsafe products like we found many products have been imported from China and they have different standards than we do. And for instance, I don't know if you remember, the children's toys were painted and the paint had lead paint in them. And some vitamins had lead in them. There are many different challenges with quality, different quality standards from different countries. Number 8, underinvestment in health workers. Adolescent safety. Adolescents are often fall into a population that are not focused on. Improving public trust of healthcare workers. Capitalizing on technological advancements, like using cell phones to reach rural populations in various parts of rural Africa, or using drones to deliver medicine. 12 threats of antimicrobial resistance and other medicines, and 13 healthcare sanitation And these are just some of the many issues, but these are definitely going to be found on our headlines. So let's explore some of these. Coronavirus started in China. 9 days later, we received our first confirmed case in Washington State. And they say it went from China, it went to Europe, and then to the United States, but within a couple of days, it traveled to our local population, global to local. Also Ebola, which quickly spread to the United States. And it's still active in many countries. And it just takes a day or two to reach us here. Another issue is, look, right now India is battling a twofold fight with dengue fever and COVID. It's the double jeopardy. And dengue fever can transfer, a mosquito can make it to the United States in a couple of days, just hopping on a plane. Another big issue we highlighted was the many refugee issues. In 2015, the crisis started, and everyone around the world has been impacted by refugee health issues, by refugees and asylum seekers and immigrants, illegal immigrants. Everyone's seeking a new life, seeking safety around the world. And as we've all seen and read in the papers, we've heard on TV, in the news shows, many refugees never do make it to their final destination. They die along the way. It's incredibly dangerous. Currently, the migrant crisis is worsening, and the COVID pandemic has severely impacted the migrant crisis. So refugees and migrants in camps are places where COVID is spreading rapidly. Female oppression is also a significant challenge in the developing world. I just highlighted 3 articles that I found in the paper. The top one, Malala, we all remember Malala, who all she wanted to do was get an education, and she was shot in the head. She just wanted to go to school. In the lower right-hand corner, I found an article about a pregnant Pakistani woman who was stoned to death by her own family for dishonoring them. Something she didn't even do, but she took she bare the brunt of this loss of face of their family. And on the left-hand corner, an acid attack in Pakistan. Huge issue, throwing acid on women, usually over a small issue, a matter of dishonor again, but acid attacks are significant. And then this article I found interesting. It was a Muslim woman in India whose husband wanted to divorce her, and he just had to repeat a word 3 times for an instant divorce. Talaq, talaq, talaq. He was divorced, he was free from her, and she was left alone with no resources. Another big issue we're facing is climate variability. July of 2020 was the hottest month on record. And what are the global impacts of this climate variability? How is this impacting the world? Well, we've all seen it, we've all heard of the floods and all the major issues. I found this interesting screenshot of significant climate events around the world. This was from January of 2020. Australia had its 3rd warmest January on record in the lower right-hand corner. Alaska in the upper left-hand corner, January 2020 was Alaska's coldest month, and it was tied in 1970 as the 13th coldest ever on record. Even the Hawaiian region is being impacted. The world is being impacted by these climate challenges. So now I'm going to switch gears a little bit and move to the second section of the presentation, which highlights just about me, how I developed my interest for global public health. Just want to give you a quick snapshot of my background. I'll go through this briefly, but I spent time in Thailand. I focused on my graduate studies at Columbia University. I founded two 501c3 nonprofit organizations, the Adolescent Health Alliance and Jax Thrive. I've worked at a research institute, which is NHPA, and a for-profit, Fortune 500 company, Pfizer. And I kind of I've researched a number of different areas, from global health to leadership development to fundraising to child health to maternal and child health. So anyway, I'll go through very briefly some of these. But to begin my story, how I first developed my passion for global health. When I was young, I was about 6 years old, I used to save my allowance, and my sister wanted to save her money to buy a limousine, and I wanted to save my money to make a difference in the world, to help someone. Our church had adopted a Laotian boat family, and because I was so shy at the time, I was selected in my class to befriend the new Laotian girl named Rasame and teach her about American culture. And it was a fascinating experience for me. I loved their culture. I loved trying their different foods, and I loved their dress, their outfits, their customs. I thought it was so neat that our community really took in this Laotian family. And from that experience, I said, God, I'd love to kind of do something in the world to give back. Such a great feeling to help someone. So at that point, I said, I know I want to do something. When I graduated from college, I want to do something to give back to the world. And I ended up applying to the World Peace Corps, and also to a program called World Teach, which I'll go through. After college, I was accepted to a program called World Teach, and I was to start the program in Thailand. And if you can see this purple circle on the top, it's actually in the wrong place, but it should be in the north, up in Chiang Mai. Right here is where I was sent. And it was a beautiful, beautiful area. And I went for the year to start this program, and I ended up staying 4. I loved it. I expanded the World Teach program in Thailand, and I had no one to speak with at all in English, so I learned Thai pretty quickly. And then I was able to teach the new World Teach volunteers Thai culture and Thai language skills. And within the school that I worked in the lower right-hand corner is called Rajamangala Institute of Technology. That's the front of my school, or Rajamangala. And worked there for 2 years, developed a new tourism major, taught English, taught French. It was a great experience. Chiang Mai is called the land of temples. They have hundreds of temples, and they all look so different. These are 2 of them here. My favorite temple is called Doi Suthep, which is the cloud temple. And this is a picture going up the stairs to the temple. You can see the clouds, and on the left-hand side is the picture of the temple looking down, looking over the village or the city of Chiang Mai. And I lived just below, down there, right below on the bottom of the mountain. It's very pretty, my college. During this experience, I was also able to join relief teams to help Hill tribe populations living in northern Thailand on the Laotian border. I joined multidisciplinary teams of architects, nurses, public health professionals, and doctors to build and repair schools, to provide first aid, to just help the Hill tribe populations with whatever they needed. And on the lower right-hand corner, there's a house. You can see a typical Hmong house that we would stay in, and no running water or electricity. There is usually a fire either out front on the little deck there, or sometimes in the middle of the hut. And we'd stay for a couple of days, and until the next project. Then I got the job of a lifetime. I'd always wanted to work in a refugee camp, so I actually applied for a Thai position working for Save the Children in a refugee camp in Panatnakhon, Thailand, which is where the lower red arrow is, in a town called Chonburi, which is about 4 hours southeast of Bangkok. And I worked there for 2 years. This camp was the final refugee camp that the refugees would go to prior to their resettlement in their third country. So they were all termed Indo-Chinese refugees, and there were about 20,000 of them, and they were survivors of the Vietnam War, and also from the brutal Pol Pot Cambodian Khmer Rouge regime in the early 70s, where they killed 2 million people. Anyone who was educated at all was killed. If you wore glasses, you were killed. that the Pol Pot regime is absolutely brutal, 4 years of absolute terror. So we had many Cambodians who were in the refugee camp, and I started off working in special education with pre-literate adults, and I also worked in maternal and child health, and I also taught a number of classes. The class on my left, it was a teen cooking class. I was teaching them actually how to make bagels. Unfortunately, I'd never made bagels before, and they don't eat bread. So my bagels came out as rocks, but it was a fun experience. On the right, I also taught science, and these were some of my science students with some of our jars. We didn't really have many supplies, but I did have jars where we would collect items and observe them. And in the middle was a Vietnamese family. Right before their departure, they were jumping on the bus, and they said, teacher, please take a last picture of us," as they went off to America. The Indo-Chinese refugees were primarily from Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam. These are some of the children from the camp. This is a typical home in a camp. They were very basic. They were temporary. All refugee camps have to be temporary. No real roads, no real trees, no established anything in a camp. The refugee camps have to be able to be disassembled quickly. So the level of dust in the camp was just unbearable. I would come home, my nails would be absolutely filthy. I would be covered in dust. And water was very hard to locate, especially clean water, especially for the children. Diarrhea was always an issue. The picture in the left-hand corner highlights some children that I saw during the monsoon season. There was a tremendous amount of flooding in the camp. Upper right-hand corner was a family bathing. There was absolutely no privacy in this camp. They're in front of the well. It wasn't really a well, but it was something that would hold the water, and a truck would bring in, would fill it up every so often. And below were some children playing in an open raw sewage. It was horrible. There was really nothing for the children to do. There were no toys. There were no structures, no playgrounds or anything. And so they would do anything to have some fun, and they would play in these raw sewage canals. As I mentioned, I taught maternal and child health students, and these were some of my students. And I'd have translators, so I taught in Thai, and then I'd have translators for all the different languages, because they were all so different. So one of my translators is pictured up in the picture on the upper left-hand corner, and he was translating to, I think, Mian, but I would speak in Thai, and they'd translate to Mian, Mong, Lahu, Khmer. So it was always a very interesting class as I'd try to teach about challenging topics, like how you explain what a vaccination is and what it does to the body, and then translate that from Thai into all these different languages. It was, I would actually be laughing half the class because it was so, I would just make my students laugh too, because it was just so crazy and fun. There were many different ethnicities within the camp, and we would always try to highlight their cultural pride. These are some of the days we had. The lower left-hand corner, one of my students asked me if she could dress me up as a Hmong bride, which was exciting. So one day she dressed me up, and she wrapped my middle with, must have been 65 cloths. They just kept wrapping them around and around and around to make me as wide and thick as possible, because that was a beautiful Hmong bride, is as big and round and healthy as possible. So I looked large and healthy. And I didn't feel so beautiful there, but I loved sharing the experience with my students. I also taught art. These were some of my art students. And we were taking a picture. We just finished a project out in the field, and you can see behind me the lookout tower. There were armed guards stationed in those lookout towers, and there was a high barbed wire surrounding the entire perimeter of the camp. No one could get in or out without showing their United Nations pass. It was very, very serious. And I just wanted to include this picture because the children were all over the camp. The group in the upper left-hand corner would follow me in the camp from my classroom to, all over. They'd just laugh and follow me, and they're always peeping through my classroom window. And as you can see, they always had their siblings, so they always carried their siblings on their backs. In this picture with this little scooter, I had never seen any toys before, and to see this scooter they were having such a ball. Usually they would, the students would be playing with an old tire or a old suitcase with a rope around it, pulling it around, but it was fun to see an actual car. I left Thailand after 4 years of service, and one day I was living in a house on stilts with limited running water, and 2 days later I was a student at Columbia University in New York City, which was quite a shock, living in Washington Heights in northern Manhattan, speaking English that I hadn't spoken in 4 years. So I began my studies to earn my master's degree and my doctorate at Columbia, and I intended to return to Thailand again and work for Save the Children. Actually, I wanted to move to Save the Children in Cambodia. Didn't make it back there to work, but I have been back to visit. I got a Master in Public Health degree from Columbia, my Teachers College, Columbia Teachers College. I got my doctorate, and I was able to work as an adjunct professor at Columbia for many years while I was working, which was really, really fun. I just wanted to share one of my graduate experiences, a graduate assignment that went wild. I had to design a fictitious program, and I actually designed the program. I thought it was pretty good. I reached out to the March of Dimes, asked if I could implement it in Harlem at the Settlement Health Clinic, which is a picture right here on the left. It's one building in from the corner there on 103rd Street. And I implemented my first program, which is a pregnancy prevention program. It was a team facilitated health intervention program. So I trained older girls who were 16 and 17 who actually had been pregnant before. I trained them in the program, and they delivered it to their younger peers, and basically trying to get them to use contraception and not to get pregnant. But I started off the pregnancy prevention program, and then I created an STD prevention program, one focused on drug and alcohol prevention. Then I worked with women, domestic violence victims, and I focused on their children. And I created all different programs, all theoretically based, and we would evaluate pre-post the programs. We delivered the programs all over New York City in health centers and in schools for years. It was a grassroots program, so I would give the program and the pre-post evaluation tools to the health centers so that they could continue to use them going forward. It was 100% volunteer. I used all Columbia and NYU students to design the program, to lead the trainings, to evaluate the program. It was really exciting. I also worked with the CDC at a fellowship, which was a great overview to how amazing the CDC is. If you get a chance to work there, it's an amazing place to work. I also worked in New York City Health and Hospital Corporation in a Healthy Mother program. And I worked at Oxford Health Plans in disease management, which was a lot of fun. Then I wanted to try research. So I worked at National Health Promotion Associates, where we were actually implementing the life skills training model, the theory, translating research into practice, writing NIH Small Business Innovative Research grants. We actually wrote and had 7 grants funded while I was there. And we published on our work. I spoke all over the country. It was a really great experience. And then I decided to try the corporate side. I started working at Pfizer in managed care strategic marketing in a cross-functional team, which was fabulous, working with people of all different backgrounds. And that was a really unique experience. And during this time, I was also able to travel. So I had the great opportunity to travel to a number of different places. One of my favorites was India, traveling all around India on a third-class train line with my now husband and our good friend who was volunteering for the year as a doctor in a very rural area of India. We traveled all around and stayed with families, which was just amazing. We have traveled throughout Eastern Africa, to Europe, North, South, and Central America. And this picture here is one of my favorites. It's when we were in Tanzania. We climbed up Mount Kilimanjaro, which is 19,340 feet. This is a picture of us as we made it to the summit. On the way up, my husband thought he was having a heart attack, and I encouraged him. I almost had to carry him up 45 minutes as we got towards the summit. And then he felt great. As soon as he got on the top, he felt fabulous. And I thought I was going to die. I developed such a splitting headache that as soon as this picture was taken, I lay down right there and I said, I'm just going to take a quick little nap. Yeah, that wouldn't be happening. Everyone freaked out and ushered me back down the mountain. It took us, I think, 6 days to go up and 2 days to go down. I also have been to Peru a couple of times. I was engaged there, and then in 2018, I organized a humanitarian multidisciplinary team to go to a village outside Cusco, Peru, and we helped a health center. We designed business strategy for a health center. We helped a special needs orphanage transition from a 4-story house where the workers had to carry the children up and down the stairs. It was dark and damp, and the kids couldn't walk, so they had to be constantly carried up and down to a new center that we helped fund, and that was flat. That was 1 story, and it was just such a great experience working with these children. We also worked with homeless young teenage mothers, which these girls were 13, 14, 15 years old. Most of them had been raped and kicked out of their villages, had nowhere to go. And so we were working with a homeless center to try to give them skills and transition them to some form of so that they could live with their children. But it was quite shocking. It was an experience. As we know, the past couple of years, we've had a tremendous amount of displacement around the world. We have almost 80 million forcibly displaced persons around the world. That's actually 1% of the population is displaced now, which is absolutely incredibly challenging. And we'll be focusing on refugees and internally displaced persons, asylum seekers, and also illegal immigrants who've come over the border. Today, there are about 30,000 refugees, and many of these refugees are, as you have known, they're fleeing Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, Eritrea, and other countries at war. They were seeking freedom in places like Germany and Sweden, which offer generous benefits for refugees. The route from Syria and Afghanistan to freedom is incredibly treacherous, and many never make it. This is just a sample map where the refugees would come from Syria through Turkey. They would take a boat over through Greece. Many of them are stuck in Greece, and right now we have about 18,000 refugees. There's tons who are stuck in Greece because Europe won't accept refugees. So they're stuck in Greece, wanting to travel up north, but they're unable to. They're stuck within these detention areas, and we'll discover this later. We'll talk about it more. A few years ago, I went to Hamburg, Germany to meet some of the refugees and asylum seekers to better understand their plight and their stories. I had the opportunity to stay with a friend of mine, a nurse who I'd worked with in Panatnakom in the refugee camp. She invited us to stay with her, and she arranged meetings with primarily with women from all different backgrounds from Syria and Afghanistan. And I had every breakfast, lunch, and dinner with a different group with families and women and children primarily. This is one family I met with. The upper left-hand photo is their last photo as they were leaving their hometown in Syria. He owned a pharmaceutical factory, and she was a teacher, and he was captured and tortured, and he was about to be killed. He got word that he was going to be killed the next day, so they left and went there. He went one way. He went by boat. His wife went by land, and their stories unbelievable. And this is them on the low right-hand corner when they were they made it to Hamburg. My friend helped them. She got them a house. She got them a program where they would teach, free English. and they're very generous in benefits in Germany for refugees, so they're doing quite well. This is a picture of just some temporary camps, some housing for refugees when they came over. They were placed in schools and theaters and convention centers, anywhere where they could find a place for them to live. More recently, as I mentioned, many refugees are stuck in Greece. There was recently a fire, and the entire camp was burned down, and now they're in a temporary camp. And so now to move on to the third area of this presentation. So what are some global health programs in Jacksonville? How can you get involved? And one that I always recommend is to get involved with the World Affairs Council, which has a relationship with UNF. Once a month, they have presentations at the UNF Herbert University Center on Tuesday evenings at 7 o'clock. They bring in fabulous, famous speakers from all around the world to lecture on various topics. Their next presentation is going to be Tuesday, October 20th at 7 p.m. If you want tickets, they're free and I can help you get them. You can also just get them through UNF. An organization located here in Jacksonville that I think is doing a fabulous job is called rethreaded.com. I don't know if you realize that Florida ranks second in the nation for human trafficking, and Jacksonville is actually first in the state. And last year, JSO rescued 55 survivors of human trafficking, 4 of whom were minors. Rethreaded teaches these women a trade. They actually turn old t-shirts into new products. They weave them into baby blankets and bags and scarves and many other things. And Rethreaded, it's a fabulous organization. They're always looking for volunteers, and they have tons of different opportunities to volunteer. Another organization is Lutheran Social Services. They're one of the last organizations that are helping refugees here in Jacksonville. And many of my students have volunteered with Lutheran Social Services. I work with them often as well. I volunteer with them. And they're always looking for people to help give presentations to the refugees on understanding medication, on a healthy diet, etc. There's many other ways to get involved in global health. UNF has study abroad programs. There's many summer programs. There are relief mission trips through churches. There's longer programs like the Peace Corps or World Teach, which I did. I always come across global health programs and fellowships and all different types of opportunities. So if you're ever looking for anything short or long term, just send me a note and I'd be happy to keep my eye out looking for something. I also come across a number of global health jobs, which I try to share with you every so often. But if you're looking for something, just let me know and I'll keep my eye out. So anyway, this is a quick and dirty overview of how I got interested in global health. And if you have any questions, reach out to me. Thanks so much. Have a great day.